YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today we have this new Gigapan I put up a couple of days ago, and this is Sol 184, Wreckage, Writing and Remains. There's a whole bunch of things here that a lot of you may have seen before, which I have covered before in years gone by. Some of these finds go right back 7 years, about 7.5 years ago, to early 2013 when I first started my channel, and are some of my very earliest finds, including this one here, which seems to be some kind of wreckage. We've got some wreckage here and here. These are small. This is only about 8 inches or 5 inches across, possibly even less. And we've got a very strange object with a black pipe on it. Now, I have done a number of videos on this and shown it a few times before in recent videos as well, so I'm not going to go on about this too much. But you can follow these links here on the Gigapan page. You've got these little links which will take you to various videos with all the information you need, and you can see close-ups and different angles and all sorts of things that are similar to it, which I've shown before. This is very odd, this bit of wreckage. When you look at it, it's kind of hovering off the ground almost. It's sat on these two kind of feet. It's a bit hard to see them. You can see these little feet sticking down underneath. You can see the shadows off the ground. It's kind of leaning back. It's very, very odd. Doesn't make any real sense. But what it does look like to me is something that I showed in a video a while back. This one. Now this video was called Mars 2020 Down Plane Found. That's from February this year, and it looks like some of this plane wreckage here. Okay. I did show it in this video, so I'm not going to go on too much about it, but it does look very similar to some of this wreckage we can see. This wreckage is from the early 1960s, I think, in the USA, of a secret aircraft, I think, or test aircraft. SR-71 or something like that, I think. So that was interesting. So we got some very interesting wreckage lying around on the ground, and for those that think this might be a rock, rocks do not have black pipes on the side of them like this and little windows, okay? And there's not a lot of detail here because this is very small, quite small, and it's a bit of a distance away from the camera, and the camera isn't zoomed in, as usual. So that was interesting. I'm not going to go on too long about these. There's a whole bunch of things here that look like bits of wreckage, including this thing here. There's a little creature here, little tiny. I only spotted this when I was making the Gigapan the other day. I've never spotted it before. Tiny, tiny, tiny little animal here with 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth there. Okay, you can see that mouth just about. That is tiny. That is about, it's probably less than 1 inch across, okay? That is really small. It might be 2 inches, I'm not sure. Then there's another animal here, just here. I've got a close-up of that. This is one of my earliest finds. This one here. And it's very strange. It's got a funny mouth, strange kind of lower jaw here sticking out, a very dark eye, and a little tiny ear at the back, just there. Not a lot of detail there. It's quite small. And we've got this mummy thing here, which looks like a calcified, preserved person wrapped in a shroud. You've got the head here. You can see, you can just about make out some eyes, a nose, and a mouth there. And basically, we've got an arm here. You can see an arm here. What I think this is either 1 or 2 mummies. This might be a separate one here, and then one here. They've been wrapped in a shroud and mummified, maybe just a few thousand years ago. But basically, these were probably buried and have become exposed and are partly eroded as well. So they calcified. They died. They were wrapped in shrouds. They were buried in a sitting position, like mummies are in Peru, like many of them are, and then buried in sand and probably rubble and rocks around them, and or perhaps in a little chamber that's now destroyed, and they are now exposed. You can see this right at the back of the image here, right up here. This is only about probably 1 foot or 2, maybe 1.5 feet tall. I would say about 12 to 14, about 14 inches maybe, something like that. But it's very odd. It looks like what I would call a shroud, a sitting shroud burial. Basically, similar to something you might see in Peru that are put in little round pits and surrounded with little rocks and sand and just buried in the ground, sitting up. Okay, interesting. There was that. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about these. These have been shown before. This I didn't find. This was found by someone else. I don't know who. There is a video you can click on here. This, I think, unlike some other channels who thought it was some kind of robot or something else, I think it's a skull, and it's got a hole in the top. We've got a very round eye there, perhaps. We've got teeth at the bottom here, and a very odd-shaped skull. And this light-coloured object here, I think, is some kind of nose or something. I could be wrong. It's very, very strange. It doesn't conform to anything we have on Earth. It's very, very strange indeed. But I would suspect that there's another eye around the other side. But what we do have here is a hole in the top of the head. Okay, just there. This is a skull. Then there was this thing which looks like a bit of carved rock, or I should say quarried rock that was probably part of a structure, and we have this perfectly straight edge to it here and here, and this rather strange cutaway part to it just there. Very odd. So that's part of something. So that's part of a structure that was here. Okay. Then we have this rather strange thing, which is a rock that's shaped like a bird, like a parrot. I've called it the parrot. This has been shown by many people before. I don't know who discovered it. This goes right back to the early days of the Curiosity rover. A bunch of people showed this then. I don't know who was first. But we have like a beak here with an eye here and a body here. But it's very odd. It may be another example of a effigy of a bird or creature. There are many of them in the area. So that's highly likely, I would say. It might just be a coincidence, and it might just be a trick of the light here and a bit of an optical rock illusion, but it does seem to have an eye in the right place and a beak and the shape of a bird, so it could well be. And then we have this new find up here. This is the one I wanted to show you today, really. We have this long kind of wall structure at the back here with some writing on it. Now, pay attention to the lighter coloured marks on here, not these really dark ones. We've got a bunch of dark ones here over to the left and a dark one here. These are cracks in the rock. The darker ones are actual cracks. Now, it seems to be like a letter E there, but I think those are cracks in the rock. And I'm going to show you an enhancement now, which I did. Some of you may have seen this already, because I put it up the other day on YouTube just as an image. But I'm just going to show you what I think this is. I don't know what it says, because obviously if this is writing and it does look like it, then it's not going to correspond to our language, so there's no point in trying to work out what it says, but we can work out what some of the characters look like. Now, if you look at a lot of ancient languages, including ancient runic languages and ancient German and ancient Celtic and even sort of old Hebrew, a lot of the symbols are the same. They all have letters that look like Y's and S's and Z's and that kind of thing, okay, and O's and E's. These shapes have been around for many, many thousands of years, okay, and it doesn't mean they all mean the same thing in each language, but the shapes are common to most languages of that type, and I would fully expect to see similar shaped characters in a Martian language, because they're just simple shapes to draw. A circle is a simple shape, an E or a V or a Y, they're very basic forms that are common throughout many, many languages on Earth. So I would expect that on Mars as well. And like I said, basically I think this over here, these are cracks here, I think, and this is also a crack here. You can actually see the rock here, there's a part sticking down, so I think these are cracks. So ignore those, but look at the other ones in between. They're sort of a lighter brown colour. So the really prominent ones, I think, are probably cracks, okay? And the ones that I want to concentrate on are these here. At this end, we got this, got a V, what looks like an O, what looks like a T, and something like an E, or a weird shaped one there, which comes out like that, right? Then we got another possible E there, another T, but it's more like a cross that comes down, something there, and a Y is there. Forgive my drawing on here. This is not the way I normally do it. And there's something underneath it. It's almost like there's two lines of text here. There's something below it, but it's not very clear. There's something down here. See, this almost looks like another E here. Right? There's a line there, and there's another line there, and there's all these kind of lines and marks here. Unfortunately, some of this is eroded and cracked, so it's very hard to tell what's what. Let's get rid of all that, because I can erase all this. There we are, yeah. Basically, the ones I want to concentrate on are these, especially this end, and this stuff here. I have no idea what any of this really actually means or represents, but they look like letters. This looks like some kind of engraved wording of some sort. And if you look at the actual negative at the bottom here, you can actually see that E really clearly. But is that really an E, or are these cracks, or is it just that the rest of them over here have eroded more, and some of them haven't eroded quite as much for some reason? Maybe all these were carved more deeply, and the erosion has kind of rubbed some of it out. Okay, if you understand what I mean, the erosion would eventually rub these letters out and make them very hard to see, and perhaps these aren't as eroded as much. So these may well be letters on the left, but I got a feeling, especially this bit here and here, is just the rock, and perhaps this here, and some of these darker details are very similar to these parts here. So I'm thinking these are actual cracks, so I'm going to ignore those. But what I'm saying is, this part of the image here, if you look at the bottom, there's something written on it, and we got like E's and T's and Y's. There's a V and an O and a T and a strange letter on the end. That one on the end is like a weird shape like that. Really interesting. And this T has got like a three-dimensional aspect to it. It's got a kind of thick part to it like that, right? And this O, if it is an O, might not be an O, because there's another part coming off here, and then that goes up like that. So, but I thought that was weird, because it looks like it says vote. Got an election coming up. Yeah, I mean, what would it represent? It's really interesting. And some of these may actually join down to here. We got some other figures here, some other possible stuff, but it's a bit vague and eroded, and you can only really see some of it in the actual negative down here, some of these fainter lines down here. So that was interesting. Not sure what to make of that. There's no way we'd ever be able to really transcribe what it actually means until we find a Rosetta Stone type object that has a lot of language on it. In other words, we would have to find a considerably detailed and well-preserved piece of literature that's carved into a rock, like the Rosetta Stone from Egypt, which has both Greek and Egyptian on it. That would be great. We're unlikely to find one with anything we can translate on it, but who knows? Their languages may be very, very similar to ours. If they're using similar symbols, I mean, basically, if you have, if you're a humanoid with 3 or 4 or 5 fingers or whatever, then, and you're carving stuff like we know they do, we know they make animals and they make buildings, they have architecture, they're bound to have writing. And the point is, if you have very similar hands to human hands, which they do on Mars, or at least they did, then the letters would be drawn in a similar way, because the structure of the hand does dictate somewhat how you would write, and the structure of the fingers and how your fingers and thumb interact when you write. So if there were humanoids there with 4 or 5 fingers like we've got, then I would expect a lot of their writing to look very similar to ours because of the physiology of the actual hand itself and an intelligent, large-brained creature. Okay, when you have those two things together, then you're going to get very similar things. A lot of the things they make would be similar. A lot of the architecture would be similar. A lot of the design, a lot of the art, a lot of the items like tools and cutlery and furniture and all those things would be similar to ours. Not the same, but similar. This is why we find so many similar things on Mars to Earth, because they were basically humanoids living there. And if you're a bipedal humanoid with a similar number of fingers, it doesn't matter whether you're a foot tall or 10 foot tall, the same rules apply, the same basic rules would apply when building things and when communicating and inventing or using text or writing like we have possibly here. Okay, that's my sort of explanation on that. Anyway, I'll just quickly show you the Gigapan once more. So that's near the back of the Gigapan, and you can link to this image that I just showed you from here. This will link you to that enhanced image that I've got. There's loads of things in here. I'm not going to go through it all now because I'll leave you boys and girls out there to have a look yourself. But there's quite a lot to see here, and it's one of my favourite Gigapans from back in the day. And this is why I put it up, because it shows the diverse nature of some of these things. We've got mummies, we've got animals, we've got wreckage, we've got weird skulls that don't make a hell of a lot of sense. We've got bits of broken architecture and strange carvings and all sorts of things here. But what this does show you is how small a lot of these things really are, because we've got a good scale here. Now bear in mind that the mast cam is about 7 feet up, so that makes things look a little bit smaller than they might be. Okay, you've got to think as if you're a basketball player looking down onto the ground. So these things look tiny, but they're not quite as tiny as you might think. But this is literally only about 4 or 5 inches tops, this thing. So there we are. So that was that really. So do come along and have a look at that. Do check out ArtAlienTV Mars magazine. You'll see a lot of these things up on there as well. You can check out, and you can download the actual image as well if you wish. But I will put clips of the images in at the end of this video in a second, so you can take screenshots if you like and keep them or whatever. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you are a subscriber, check you're still subscribed, because I think basically YouTube are giving me fun and games with the subscriber count recently. Every time I get a new subscriber, it gets taken off straight away. I think they're deliberately unsubscribing people. For some reason there's a glitch or something, whether it's deliberate or not I don't know, but basically check your subscriber status, because you may have been unsubscribed. And I know for a fact they sent me a letter about a week or two ago saying that they were going to stop notifications for people as well. So this may explain a few things. Okay, so let me know if you've had any funny dealings with the subscriber thing, the subscriber bell or whatever, because you should be getting notifications, but I think they may have stopped them altogether now. Whether that's just for me or for everybody, I think probably for everybody. So thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.